The med bay lights turned sterile white, and something began to smoke. Not from fire, no, it was the blood sample. Dr. Cararton, chief xenobiologist aboard the Dominion medical vessel Vahen, blinked all four eyes at the diagnostic display. The thermal readout pulsed yellow, then red, then, impossibly, orange. Your sample is reacting. His assistant clicked nervously. Across the room, strapped to the exam table with what could generously be described as too many restraints, was the human. Lieutenant Mara Keene of the Terran Expeditionary Corps raised an eyebrow. You didn't tell me it was gonna boil, document. It's not boiling, Cararton hissed. It's oxidizing spontaneously. He turned his mandibles toward the readout, muttering, that shouldn't be possible outside a combustion chamber. Welcome to humanity, Mara said, smirking. We run hot. He had studied dozens of species, carbon-based, silicon-based, even a photosynthetic intelligence that breathed ultraviolet light. But none of them had blood that smoked when exposed to oxygen. KR-10 switched on a containment shield. We must determine the cause. This may explain why your kind survived the Harkon cluster fallout. Mara shrugged. That, or we're just too stubborn to die. The machine beeped. A chemical breakdown appeared on the holodisplay. Hemoglobin, water, trace amounts of iron, and nearly a dozen unstable hydrocarbons. KR-10's antennae twitched. Your blood is partially fuel. Sounds about right, Mara said. We've been running on caffeine and spite since the Stone Age. KR-10 looked genuinely concerned. If this analysis is accurate, human physiology operates dangerously close to thermal ignition. Your tissues generate 310 Kelvin of base heat, your cells contain volatile lipid chains, and your brain is 90% overclocked nonsense. Mara interrupted. He stared at her. You jest, but it may not be far from the truth. Another alarm went off. The scanner started humming, detecting microvoltage pulses across her bloodstream. Electrical activity inside the circulatory system, something no other known species exhibited. You conduct current through your blood? Sure, Mara said casually. Electrolytes. Keeps the heart ticking. KR-10 backed away. That's not a heart, that's a fusion reactor. Before he could continue, the med bay doors hissed open and Commander Velix entered, his carapace glinting under the lights. Report, Doctor. The Council wants to know if the Terran specimen poses a threat. KR-10 didn't even look up. A threat? Commander, if half this data is correct, she's a hazard class by herself. Mara chuckled. That's Lieutenant Hazard to you. Velix's eyes narrowed. You find this amusing? Buddy, my entire planet runs on things you call unstable. We drink ethanol, breathe nitrogen, and start wars over flavor packets. You haven't even seen weird yet. For a moment, silence filled the bay. Then the power flickered, just once. The smell of ozone sharpened. KR-10 froze. Is that your doing? Mara frowned. What? No. Unless your ship doesn't like sarcasm. But the ship's AI chimed in immediately. Warning, medbay voltage spike detected. Source, organic. KR-10 turned slowly. Lieutenant Keene. Are you generating an electric field? She flexed her fingers, and the restraints crackled slightly. Maybe. By the void, Velix whispered. You could ignite the oxygen mixture just by feeling irritated. Mara grinned. Now you're starting to get humans. The ship's PA blared. Containment breach in Xenolab. Unknown energy surge from human subject. KR-10 hissed. Deactivate restraints. Quickly! Velix recoiled. You wish to free the specimen? If she combusts, those straps will turn her into a fragmentation device. But it was too late. The restraints snapped under a flash of static, and the energy field blew out half the medbay lights. Smoke coiled through the air, dark, acrid, and somehow metallic. When it cleared, Mara stood upright, completely unharmed. The scanner beside her had melted into slag. Oops, she said, sheepishly brushing ash from her uniform. Guess I got stressed. KR10 stared in pure disbelief. Your biology violates thermodynamic equilibrium. She smirked. That's what my high school teacher said. Velix's mandibles clicked in shock. This is not evolution. This is weaponized chaos. Close, Mara said, cracking her neck. We call it humanity. The medbay alarms finally died down, and the AI's voice came back online, hesitant. Recommendation: restrict human sample handling to non-flammable environments. KR10 slumped in exhaustion. Lieutenant, your species is an anomaly. Mara tilted her head. Doc, we prefer the term fun surprise. The med bay doors hissed shut as containment teams scrambled to check the damage. The ship hummed nervously, as if aware it had a human aboard. Mara sat back on the exam table, kicking her boots. So, document. Still think we're the weak species? KR10 sighed. Weak? No. Insane? Undoubtedly. She smiled. Good. We'll get along just fine then. He turned back to his scanner, muttering under his breath. I must rewrite every biological constant I know. Behind them, the burned hollow screen still displayed the test result. Toxicology report, borderline flammable. Recommendation: do not inhale near open flame. And beneath it, as if mocking them all, the AI added a note in Terran Standard. Subject stable. Mood mildly amused. KR10 whispered. May the stars protect us if her kind ever gets angry. Mara winked. Oh, don't worry. We usually are. The Vathan's medbay didn't sleep that night. Dr. KR10's 4 eyes glowed faintly under the diagnostics as he ran yet another test, muttering alien curses under his breath. The first 27 experiments had already been labeled inconclusive due to human interference. The 28th would likely follow. Mara Keene sat cross-legged on the medbay counter, sipping coffee from a steaming cup she'd synthesized using one of their sterilizers. Tell me again, KR10 said, rubbing his temple ridge. Why must you consume a neurostimulant that increases cardiac output by 30%? Because it tastes like victory, Mara replied. It smells like engine degreaser. Exactly. KR10 groaned and waved a tentacle over the monitor. Do you realize your bloodstream contains compounds I use for propulsion fluid? She grinned. So I'm technically rocket fuel. Cool. Commander Velix stood nearby, arms crossed, watching the human with wary fascination. Doctor, is there any chance this creature is stable? Define stable, Mara interjected. The alien commander ignored her. Every sensor on this deck keeps triggering chemical hazard warnings. Her perspiration just dissolved a sterilization tray. Ah, Mara said. That happens when I'm stressed. High acidity. Hi, KR10 spluttered. Lieutenant, your sweat corrodes surgical alloy. Only a little, she said. I moisturize. Velix stepped back a few paces. Doctor, if these readings are accurate, this human is walking hazardous waste. Mara raised an eyebrow. And yet somehow I'm the only one here without a breathing mask. The silence that followed was awkward, punctuated by the soft hiss of the life support systems. KR10 changed subjects quickly. Very well. Let us move on to the neural tests. Please place your hand in the scanner. She complied, resting her palm on a cold metal pad. The machine beeped, and immediately blew a fuse. Sparks rained down like confetti. KR10 hissed in frustration. This is impossible. Her neural impulses are overloading the feedback circuits. Mara blew on her fingers as if cooling them off. Guess I'm just shocking like that. Velix groaned. If she makes one more pun, I'll eject her into the void. Oh please, Mara said. You'd miss me within a minute. Who else is going to explain sarcasm to your crew? Explain what? Exactly. KR10, ignoring them both, reattached a new module. Let's try a chemical stress test instead. Introduce mild toxin, see immune response. Wait, mild toxin? Mara asked, suspicious. Diluted Felrith enzyme, KR10 said, carefully measuring the dose. It paralyzes most life forms. For you, I anticipate only mild reaction. Mild? He injected the serum. For 3.6 seconds, nothing happened. Then every monitor in the med bay lit up red. Heart rate, 180 BPM. Temperature, climbing. Cellular activity, off the charts. KR10 blinked. Her immune cells, they're multiplying. Mara gritted her teeth. Yeah, we don't really do paralysis. Your body is attacking the toxin. No, it's learning from it. Velix stepped closer. Explain. KR10 stared at the display. Her antibodies aren't neutralizing the enzyme. They're absorbing its molecular pattern and producing a counteragent. She's evolving in real time. Mara smirked through the adrenaline rush. You think that's cool? Wait till you see what happens when we get a cold. KR10 stumbled back. You mean your species routinely survives viral mutations this intense? Survive them? We call it flu season. The commander and doctor looked at each other in silent horror. Then the ship's AI interrupted again. Alert! Atmospheric filtration units detecting human exhalation compounds exceeding safe levels. Mara blinked. What compounds? Adrenaline byproducts. Ethanol traces. And, the AI paused. Methane. KR10 froze. You are emitting combustible gas? Mara coughed. Hey, that's, probably the coffee. Velix raised both claws. You mean to tell me that your body's natural stress response could ignite the med bay? Well, she said, I'm not saying it will, but you might want to keep a fire extinguisher handy. The lights flickered again. The air shimmered faintly as the temperature climbed. Doctor, Velix said grimly, if she detonates, we're all vapor. KR10 panicked, rushing to recalibrate the oxygen scrubbers. Reduce O2 concentration to 15%. Hey, Mara protested. Humans need that to breathe. Better you faint than explode. She threw up her hands. Fine. But if I pass out, you're carrying me. You weigh twice what you should. KR10 shouted. Your bones are solid calcium carbonate, your muscles hyperdense. Your species is physically absurd. That's called Jim Day document. Velix's communicator beeped. Bridge to med bay. Commander, is it true the human caused a power surge? Multiple. Velix growled. The voice on the other end sounded worried. Engineering reports the surge traveled through the coolant conduits and, melted 2 drones. Mara whistled. Nice. New personal record. Velix pinched his mandibles. Lieutenant, you are a liability. Correction, Mara said, hopping off the counter. I'm an asset that bites back. Before he could respond, another alarm blared. Warning, heat levels critical in Xenolab containment. KR10 gasped. The toxin sample. Her immune residue must have contaminated the filters. The 3 of them sprinted to the adjacent lab. Inside, the air shimmered with golden haze, the human's blood plasma reacting with the containment gel. It was boiling again. What's happening? Velix demanded. KR10's mandibles clacked. Her antibodies are catalyzing chain combustion. The reaction is self-sustaining. You mean it's burning without oxygen? Yes. It's generating its own oxidizer. Mara's eyes widened. You're telling me my immune system just invented fire that doesn't go out? Yes. That's awesome. That's catastrophic. The containment chamber erupted in a plume of orange light. Fire suppression fields struggled to contain it, flickering against the plasma arcs. AI! Velix barked. Seal the lab! Unable to comply. Reaction is self-perpetuating. Mara rolled up her sleeves. All right, stand back. KR10 panicked. What are you doing? Solving your problem the old-fashioned way. She punched the emergency release and grabbed a coolant hose. Supercooled nitrogen blasted across the chamber. Frost spread along her arms, but she didn't flinch. She aimed the spray directly into the reactor core. The plasma dimmed, then sputtered, then, finally, went out. Steam filled the room. Silence followed. Kr-10 gawked at her, frost still coating her sleeves. You could have been flash frozen. She said, flexing her fingers. We call that Tuesday on Europa Station. Velix exhaled. You are unbelievable. Thanks. I try. The doctor collapsed onto a stool. Commander, I have reached a conclusion. Velix turned. Which is? Kr-10 gestured toward Mara, who was busy poking the burnt lab console. Humans are not carbon-based lifeforms. They are chemical disasters that decided to walk upright. Mara grinned. And proud of it. That night, the ship's AI quietly updated its internal files. Species file #47H, Homo sapiens. Composition, unstable hydrocarbons. Reaction type, exothermic under stress. Threat level, unpredictable. Recommendation, do not agitate. Provide coffee regularly. The next morning aboard the Vathen was unusually loud for a Dominion warship. The crew's usual quiet clicks and hisses were drowned out by the unmistakable sound of argument echoing through the corridors. Dr. Kr-10 had called for an emergency science council. The last time he'd done that was when an asteroid worm had eaten a shuttle and declared itself a citizen. This time, it was worse, because this time, the problem could talk back. Mara Keene sat in the center of the medbay surrounded by 6 alien scientists, all glaring at her, as though she'd personally offended the laws of physics. She grinned. Morning, class? A Trashian biochemist whispered to Kr-10. Are you certain it's safe to let it speak? I'm sitting right here, Sparkles, Mara said. And I bite. The Trashian flinched. It understands us. Kr-10 sighed. Of course she does. Humans seem to absorb languages the way they absorb toxins, rapidly and with minimal logic. Thanks, Doc, Mara said. I'll put that on my resume. Commander Velix stood behind the glass, arms folded. Proceed, Doctor. Kr-10 turned to the Council. As you all know, the Terran specimen has displayed unconventional biochemistry. The human immune system has proven capable of spontaneous energy generation, combustion without oxidizer, and electrical conduction through fluid tissue. However, I believe we have only begun to understand the true danger. He tapped the console, and the holodisplay flared to life. The room filled with floating graphs and thermal scans of Mara's body. Observe this, Kr-10 said, pointing to a line that spiked like a seismic chart. This was taken during what she calls stress response. That's just me getting yelled at, Mara said. Exactly, Kr-10 replied. Her endocrine reaction produces enough energy to power a shuttle for 12 seconds. I suspect emotional states are directly tied to electrochemical surges. One of the scientists blinked. You mean, feelings generate power? Mara leaned back. Buddy, you should see what happens when we fall in love. They all stared. Joke, she said quickly. Mostly. The Trashian raised a quivering tentacle. Then we must test it. Induce emotion and record output. Mara frowned. You're not going to poke me with electrodes again, are you? Perhaps mild stimulus, Kr-10 said. Images, sounds, or memories. She sighed. Fine. But if you play sad violin music, I'm biting someone. They began projecting holographic stimuli, scenes from Earth history, landscapes, audio recordings, faces. For the first few minutes, the readings stayed steady, then something shifted. The screen showed an old Earth clip, a rescue worker carrying a child from rubble. The background hum of the medbay deepened, and the lights flickered. Kr-10 stared at the display. Her pulse is steady, but energy levels are climbing. Of course they are, Velix muttered from behind the glass. She's reacting. The sensors spiked again as the hologram changed to something simpler, a human crowd cheering at a launch site. The roar of engines filled the speakers. Mara smiled softly. That was the Europa mission, first humans to the ice colonies. The power monitors jumped. Kr-10 blinked in disbelief. Her sentiment is generating electromagnetic resonance. The Trashian scientist nearly dropped his tablet. She's turning nostalgia into current. Then the display changed again, footage of war. Explosions. Smoke. Human soldiers running through chaos. Mara's jaw tightened. Stop that, she said quietly. KR-10 hesitated. We need data. I said stop. The holo kept playing. Her eyes darkened, and every screen in the room began to distort. Static hissed through the speakers. Doctor! One of the scientists cried. We're detecting plasma buildup in her neural field. Velix shouted through the calm. Cut the power! Too late. The med bay lights went white-hot, then exploded in a shower of sparks. The containment fields flickered. Every alien scientist hit the floor. Mara stood in the center of the chaos, surrounded by arcs of blue lightning that leapt between her fingertips and the floor. The air itself trembled with her heartbeat. Her voice was calm. Turn it off. KR-10 slammed the emergency cutoff. The hologram vanished. The room fell silent except for the sizzling of melted cables. She took a deep breath, and the arcs faded. For several long seconds, no one moved. Then one scientist whispered, It's true. Emotions in humans manifest as energy forms. Their rage could power reactors. Mara rubbed her temples. Great. Now you've seen my angry phase. Velix stormed into the room. Lieutenant, you nearly overloaded the ship's grid. Not my fault you wired your walls like cheap Christmas lights. KR-10 slumped against the console. Commander, if her emotional states are this volatile, even mild agitation could destabilize our entire power network. Mara crossed her arms. Then don't agitate me. You are a walking existential threat. Velix snapped. Yeah, she said, smiling faintly. But I'm your existential threat. Remember, we're allies now. Before anyone could respond, the AI's voice interrupted again, hesitant, almost nervous. Bridge to Med Bay, external sensors detecting radiant flux from human chamber. Reading. 2.3 terajoules per emotional spike. KR-10 looked at Mara. You're leaking power through the hull. Well, she said, shrugging. I guess I'm just full of feelings. Do not joke. You're generating enough charge to magnetize the ship's armor plating. Sure enough, the deck began to hum with static. Small tools lifted slightly off the floor, drawn upward by invisible fields. The Trashian yelped, clinging to the nearest table. She's turning us into a, what's the human word, superconductor? Velix shouted. Shut down everything! Vent excess power through the dorsal conduits. Negative, the AI said. Venting risk catastrophic backfeed. Recommend emotional stabilization of human. Mara blinked. You want me to relax? After that? Affirmative. Fine, she said, closing her eyes. Happy thoughts. Puppies. Beaches. Coffee. Don't explode, don't explode, don't explode. Slowly, the hum faded. The tools dropped back to the floor. The med bay lights dimmed from blinding white to soft blue. KR-10 exhaled shakily. Remarkable. She can regulate her output consciously. Mara smiled weakly. Told you. I'm not a bomb, I'm just enthusiastic. Velix's mandibles twitched. Doctor, you will ensure this enthusiasm remains contained. The Dominion Council will not allow a walking reactor aboard indefinitely. Oh, you're keeping me, Mara said, standing up. Admit it. I'm the most interesting thing you've ever dissected. The commander glared. Dissection is still an option. Mara leaned forward with a grin. Good luck with that. Last time someone tried to cut me open, the scalpel melted. Silence. Then KR-10 sighed. I hate my job. Hours later, the Vathans AI logged a new observation. Addendum to species file #47H. Emotional energy output measurable at 0.1 to 2.3 terajoules per incident. Primary triggers: nostalgia, stress, caffeine deprivation. Countermeasures: none effective. Note: ship temperature rose 3 degrees during puppy visualization. Recommend continued monitoring at safe distance. On the observation deck, Mara gazed out into the starfield. KR-10 joined her quietly. "You're not going to stab me with anything else, are you?" she asked. He hesitated. "No. I believe we've learned enough today." She smirked. "Good. Because tomorrow I plan on teaching your AI how to dance." He groaned audibly. "Why would you?" "Because, Doc." She looked out at the stars, the faint glimmer of the ship reflected in her eyes. "If we're stuck out here in the void, we might as well make it fun." The alarm started 12 hours later. This time, it wasn't Mara's fault. The vat hen shook as a low-frequency vibration rolled through its hull. Warning lights flared across the bridge. Commander Velix barked orders while Dr. KR-10 clung to a console, trying to keep his balance. "Report!" Velix demanded. The AI's voice came through, strained. "External anomaly detected. Gravitational spike ahead, mass signature consistent with collapsed star fragment." KR-10 froze. "A graviton shard? Those only form after black hole implosions." Mara strode onto the bridge, still in her scorched jumpsuit, a cup of coffee steaming in her hand. "You mean we're flying into a baby black hole?" "Correction," the AI said. "It is flying into us." Through the viewport, the stars warped, bent around a pulsing void that looked like light itself had been torn. The shard glowed with cold fire, dragging electromagnetic storms in its wake. Velix's claws flexed. "Shields to maximum." "Already at full," a technician cried. "Graviton flux increasing, field collapse in 30 seconds." The deck lurched again. Consoles sparked. Power readings spiked to impossible levels. KR-10 yelled. "It's draining our reactor! It's feeding off our energy output!" Mara raised an eyebrow. "Well, that's rude." "Lieutenant!" Velix snapped. "This is not the time." "Oh, it's exactly the time," Mara interrupted. She slammed her cup onto the console. "You said it's eating energy, right? So we feed it something it can't handle." KR-10's antennae flicked. "What are you implying?" She grinned. "Me." Every alien in the room turned to stare at her. Velix's mandibles clicked. "You intend to, what? Walk into a graviton storm?" "Not walk," Mara said, pulling on her gloves. "Glow." KR-10 gaped. "You cannot seriously mean to expose yourself to an unstable gravitational field. Your molecules will combust," she finished. "Doc, my blood already smokes at room temperature. Let's see what happens when I crank it up." Before anyone could stop her, she grabbed a magnetic tether and marched toward the airlock. Velix followed. "You'll destabilize your biochemistry. You could ignite the entire—" "That's the point," she said, slapping the panel. "You aliens built this ship like a precision scalpel. Sometimes what you need is a hammer." The airlock hissed open. Outside, the shard pulsed, a tiny, devouring sun. Tendrils of dark gravity curled toward the ship like reaching fingers. The vacuum shimmered with charged particles, dancing in invisible rhythm. Mara stepped onto the ramp, tether line glowing behind her. Her breath fogged inside her helmet as she stared into the storm. "All right," she muttered. "Let's see what happens when chaos meets gravity." KR-10's voice crackled through her calm. "Human! Your core temperature is rising rapidly." "Yeah," she said, flexing her hands as static licked across her gloves. "I'm heating up." Her pulse quickened. The tether began to hum. She thought of every moment of fear she'd had on this mission, every alien stare, every sarcastic comment masking real anxiety. Then she thought of home. Of Earth's blue sky, coffee shops, thunderstorms, her mother's laugh. And the readings on KR-10's console went wild. "Commander!" he shouted. "She's generating an energy field." "Magnitude?" "Off the scale, she's pulling power directly from her emotional cortex." Velix watched in stunned silence as a corona of light surrounded Mara's suit. Electric arcs danced between her fingertips. The tether line glowed white-hot. Out in the dark, the graviton shard reacted, drawn toward her like a magnet. The storm distorted around her as she raised her hands, every nerve in her body burning with heat and adrenaline. "Come on, you cosmic parasite," she whispered. "Let's dance." The first contact felt like an explosion. The shard's energy hit her like a tidal wave, but instead of vaporizing, she absorbed it. The plasma around her body flared bright enough to blind the sensors. "Energy surge!" the AI shouted. "Output exceeding reactor limits, redirecting to auxiliary grid." Mara laughed. It sounded wild, echoing over the comms. "Told you, humans are flammable, not fragile." Her laughter grew louder, manic, almost musical, and the storm bent away. The shard convulsed, collapsing under the surge of human energy that wasn't logical, wasn't mechanical, just raw, defiant will. KRR-10 could hardly breathe. "She's overpowering a graviton anomaly through emotional resonance," Velix whispered. "She's burning the dark itself." Then the shard imploded, a brilliant flare of blue-white light that rippled across the void like a heartbeat. When it faded, there was only silence, and a single human tether line, drifting gently. "Signal lost," the AI said quietly. KRR-10 slumped forward, trembling. "She did it, she saved us." Velix bowed his head. "At what cost?" The comm crackled. "At the cost of one really good cup of coffee," Mara's voice said, rough but alive. The bridge erupted in disbelief. "Impossible," KRR-10 gasped. "You should have disintegrated." "Turns out," she said, "I run hotter than physics allows." "Don't worry, document. I vented the extra charge into space. Gave the shard a taste of its own medicine." Velix exhaled a slow, shuddering breath. "You are either the luckiest being in existence, or the most terrifying." "Why not both?" Mara said, re-entering the airlock with smoke still rising from her suit. "Besides, it's nice to remind the universe that we bite back." KRR-10 stared at her, all overtaking fear. "Your species is chaos incarnate." She smiled tiredly. "Nah. We're just passionate." Later, in his private report, KRR-10 recorded the final entry. Addendum: Species file #47H, human. Subject demonstrated spontaneous fusion of emotional and chemical energy sufficient to neutralize graviton phenomena. Capable of converting fear into power, pain into heat, and sarcasm into strategy. Conclusion: Humanity violates conservation of sanity. Recommend permanent diplomatic relations, and reinforced fire suppression. As the vat hen drifted safely away from the collapsing void, Mara stood at the viewport, sipping what remained of her scorched coffee. The stars shimmered like embers in the black sea ahead. KRR-10 joined her. "You realize, Lieutenant, that your actions defy every known physical law?" "Yeah," she said, smiling faintly. "That's kind of our thing." He looked at her for a long time. "You frighten me." "Good," she said. "Fear's just respect in disguise." She raised her cup in salute to the stars. "To curiosity, chaos, and caffeine, the holy trinity of humanity." The AI chimed softly. "Energy levels normalized. Crew morale increased by 87%. Velix's voice came through the comm. "Lieutenant Keene, you're confined to Med Bay until further notice." "Why?" she asked. "Because your blood is still smoking." She looked down. The rim of her glove was smoldering faintly. "Fair." She grinned at KRR-10. "Better put me on ice, document otherwise, I might start another fire." He sighed. "You already did, Lieutenant. In all of us." The stars reflected in her eyes as the ship hummed around them, alive again. Somewhere deep within the Dominion's data archives, a new phrase was added to the galactic lexicon. Human, a species of sentient combustion. Handle with coffee. Mara turned to the viewport, smirked, and winked. "Thanks for watching, everyone. And hey, if you like the chaos, subscribe. We've got plenty more explosions where that came from."